What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Tell us about that. I'm your host, On Fire. And we got a couple of things to talk about tonight. It's a great night, Saturday night. It's a great night in New York City. Weather was pretty decent. Nice day to be out. But there was some early fights with Joe Cardina defending his title, 17-0. He moved to 17-0 with the win over Edwin Vasquez. It was a good fight with the challenger's aggressiveness and energy clearly setting the pace for the 12 rounds, with Joe trying to stay at a distance and counterpunch and use his range. The judges had it 114, 114, and 116, 112 twice for Joe Cardina, but there was some reports that felt that Edward Vasquez did enough to possibly get the win. This is Edwin Vasquez's second controversial loss, his first coming in 2022 against Raymond Ford, where many felt that he was robbed in that fight. So now, what happens now? Joe decides to unify, and who's at the weight? WBO, Emmanuel Navarrete. For the WBC, you got Shaki Forster, who just scored a spectacular 12-round knockout just last week, and also Hector Garcia, who holds the WBA belt. So now let's see where Joe goes from here in terms of unifying those titles and seeing how he does it and in what order, So, did you guys watch the fight? And if so, what you think? There was some pretty good undercards. The women's were fighting. I wasn't really watching as I was doing a couple of errands and, doing a couple of things, but I was able to then capture the main event, which was pretty entertaining. Joe did well when he stood at the distance. There was some moments when Joe decided to fight on the inside, and I don't know why, when he was able to then use his distance in order to make the fight happen. Again, 15-2 for Vasquez. Controversial. It depends who you ask. So, Joe lost his title due to an injury. So he's a two-time title holder, and he never actually lost that belt in the ring. So it's ironic that he's now defending it now for the first time on his second go round, and he was successful at that. Now he's 17-0, and now we got to wait and see where Joe goes from here. What's happening else in boxing? What have you guys been up to, man? You guys been staying up with the fights, and I know there's been a lot of talk about the heavyweights, and we'll get into that later. But let's talk about next week. Next week we got Shakur Stevenson, the number 1 ranked, against the number 6 ranked Edwin de Los Santos for the vacant WBC. lightweight title. Now, Shakur Stevenson is a two-division, three-time world champion. He had the WBO featherweight, then he had the WBO and the WBC, as well as the Ring magazine at super featherweight. Edwin de los Santos. I don't know much about Edwin de los Santos. He has one loss. I know that he's coming from the Dominican Republic. He's a southpaw, and he packs power in both fists, which is evident with his 82.4% knockout ratio. Should be an interesting fight. I mean, Shakur, he's very mature for his age inside of that ring. He has ring generalship. He has speed. You can see he has that thought process. So it's going to be an interesting fight to see how Edwin de los Santos tries to distill or instill his power over a young former champion and champion. That should be a good fight. I'm interested in seeing that. That's going to be on the Zone. Actually, that's going to be on ESPN, ESPN2. With Showtime out of boxing, and again, we'll get into that later. People have questions about where each fight was going to be. So right now, that fight is going to be on ESPN, ESPN Plus. So we can expect to see more fights and more bouts on ESPN and ESPN Plus. So that's a place that we're going to be able to go in order to watch the fights. On November 25th, on the Zone, another place where we're going to be watching fights, right? So we're going to have ESPN and ESPN Plus. We're going to have the Zone, who's going to continue supporting and broadcasting fights. They just got into a new deal with Jake Paul. We'll talk about that later. But on November 25th, Chantel Cameron, she defends her undisputed titles against Kathy Taylor for the second time. Kathy Taylor moves up in order to try to capture the undisputed junior welterweight championships from Cameroon on May 5th of 2023. And she was unsuccessful in doing so. Before that, she fought in October of 2022. She defended her undisputed titles. She decided that she wanted to challenge herself, so she moved up. And again, she was unsuccessful in that title bid to capture those titles. And Cameroon is going to give her another opportunity to step up and try to capture those titles again. So we're looking forward to that on the 25th. Kathy Taylor trying to capture the undisputed junior welterweight championship. Cameroon giving her that opportunity. Great work. Also on the 25th of November, a doubleheader with David Benavidez and Demetrius Andrade. Now, Andrade has been a fighter who's been out of the limelight, low key, because to me, early on in his career, he was kind of a tough style of a fighter to face. So I feel like a lot of fighters didn't face him simply because of his elusiveness. He's a southpaw, and he was just all around hard to fight, just a difficult style. Both of these guys, they're labeled as two of the guys that have been most avoided in the super middleweight division. So this fight can possibly mean something for the winner, because then that winner stakes himself as the guy to fight the big fights, or fight the Canelo fight, or fight the fight that matters, or the fight that can change their life, right? Also on the card, WBC champion Jamal Charlo, who's fighting the brother of David Benavidez, Jose Benavidez Jr. Jamal Charlo has been out of the ring. He hasn't been making much noise. We haven't been hearing much from him. And there were reports that he was upset because there was no press conference that was held in order to announce this fight here against Jose Benavidez Jr. But we knew about it. We knew where it was. We knew where it fit. And so did Showtime. And I guess that's the reason they didn't do a separate press conference for Jamal Charlo. Anywho and anyhow. It's good to see those guys back in the ring, though. Jamal Charlo, we seen him the last time out with Canelo, and we know what that outcome was. And now we're going to see Jamal Charlo. But just overall, it's just good to see those guys back inside of the ring. Sources understand that there's a new date of February 17, 2024 for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is fighting Vasquez. Vasquez is a 6'3" lightweight. He has 2 fights in 5 years. He has 2 wins. He has 2 losses. He has 2 draws. He has 2 losses. He has 2 wins. 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 He has 2 losses. He has and Alexander-Usyk, also in Saudi Arabia at the Kingdom Arena. So I know that there was some talks in the prior days, immediately after Tyson Fury's subpar performance against Ngannou, that he pulled out of the fight and that they were going to sue him for over $200 million. But none of that was confirmed. None of that. And I think that it was too soon to even have that conversation based on the fight that was happening. So I don't know if that was the case, but here we are. They moved it off. I guess they figured, Tyson had a tough fight. He had a rough and tough tumble. He also had a slight cut that may have affected, the timing of the fight. So they moved it to February 17th of 2024. So as of right now, the rematch against Francis Ngannou is not possible. Maybe at a later date. I don't know how quick Tyson is looking to fight Ngannou again. But for right now, February 17 is the reported date of Tyson Fury, Alexander-Usyk. And so we're going to go with that report and see what happens. Tyson, we never know what he could pull, right? He can possibly say, you know what, I'm retired, I'm done, do what you need to do. Or he can come back. I think he's going to come back, and I think he's going to, look a lot more different and a lot better than what we've seen from him last week, Saturday, against Ngannou. But that's just my opinion. Speaking of the date of February 17th and Saudi Arabia, there are reports that Saudi Arabia is still plotting a huge December 23 fight where Francis Ngannou sets a headline after Tyson and Usyk's blockbuster clash was moved back until February. What do you guys think about that? Francis Ngannou headlining a boxing event out of Saudi Arabia on December 23rd. Whoa, what a Christmas gift, huh? What a Christmas gift. If they make it right and we get a nice undercard, and it's something that is really challenging for the fighters and enjoyable for the fans, I mean, why not? I ain't doing nothing on December 23rd. I'll be right here. Bring the fights, and we will watch the fights. Francis Ngannou. So who do you think they're talking about fighting? Because Martin Markel, Ngannou's manager, said that Francis' decision regarding his next fight is like 90% made, and acknowledged that it's Fury, Wilder, and Joshua that are in the running. So out of those three guys, who would you like to see Francis Ngannou face? Again, he says in the running, Fury, Wilder, and Joshua. I think Fury and Ngannou will be a blowout fight while it lasted. But I don't think it'll go 12 rounds, 10 rounds, whatever it's scheduled for. I don't think he's going to go for that. So with Fury, the rematch, I think Fury will be better prepared. And I think Fury will still beat Francis Ngannou. Joshua, to me, that's the only iffy one to me. I don't know that he can go shot for shot with Francis Ngannou. And again, that's just me. Maybe he'll box around and do what Eddie Hearn says he'll do and beat Francis Ngannou inside of 3. I don't know that happens. I don't know that happens. So, but either way, man, bring the fights and we'll definitely watch. And if you put the right fights, we'll definitely buy the pay-per-views. If you promise and give us the right fights, people will, subscribe to the zones and ESPN. And, once we know that the fights are happening, sign the fights and we see what's going on and we watch, PBC and Showtime, they've scraped any plans for December 9 pay-per-view. And they're moving to December 16 instead. Now, December 9, Devin Haney is defending and trying to capture Regis Prograis' title. And Floyd Mayweather was rumored to be going on the same date of December 9 with Danny Garcia against
Landy Lara. Keith Thurman was supposed to be on the card, but allegedly Showtime didn't want to pay the money that they were requesting in order to put these fighters and this fight on the pay-per-view network. So it didn't work out. So they're moving to a December 16th finale featuring David Morrell Jr. There's not much info that I got or that I could find regarding this fight, but I'm sure we're gonna be hearing about it more soon. So what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing out there? This is my second stream, and I hope that whoever's watching is enjoying. If you're not watching now because you're doing other things, that's fair. Hopefully, and the rewatch, you enjoy it. Give me your comments. Give me your constructive criticism. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what's happening with you. What else is happening? Jake Paul. Jake Paul and Most Valuable Promotions. So they extended their streaming service, The Zone, and they're promising to give us 6 shows in 2024 as opposed to the 4 that they did in 2023. So big things for Jake Paul's Most Valuable Promotions. And a lot of people really criticize his entry into the boxing world. And I thought from the beginning that New Eyes was good for the sport. And I think Jake Paul is doing great things. He's putting on entertaining fights. Say what you may about them, you know, people are tuning in. He's bringing in new eyes, casuals turning into fans because of Jake Paul. And now with his promotional company, signing fights and signing fighters and putting on fights and putting on young talent so that we can see them grow within the organization. That's great. That's great overall. That's great for Jake Paul. That's great for Most Valuable Promotions. And that's great for us as fans. I mean, who can ask for more? 6 fights right there. We're guaranteed 6 cards right there in 2024. So you can figure that's one every 2 months. Now, that's just Jake Paul. If other promoters as well put on numerous cards throughout the year, they say one promoter puts 6, another puts 6, another puts 6, then guess what? If they don't compete in the dates that are available, then we can have year-round boxing throughout with all these promoters and all these fighters just getting busy and putting together the cards and putting together the promotions and putting together the big fights. That's the way you're gonna make it happen. By everybody contribute to the sport of boxing. If you're a promoter, put the fights together, promise us a certain number of fights, and promise us that certain number of fighters are going to fight more throughout the year, and we'll tune in. And again, we'll pay for those fights. No doubt. Boxing fans will pay for the fights, we'll pay for the right fights, we'll pay for the fighters that are fighting frequently. We'll invest our money in those fighters. We'll go see those fighters if and they're around our town. And some people even fly out to see fighters on a regular basis. So let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on Jake Paul in boxing, period. And what you think of his what you say about his involvement and his giving into this sport. Do you think he's good for the sport? Do you think Jake Paul is not good for the sport? And let me know why. I mean, across the board, if you're putting on fights, if you're fighting, if you're putting seats in the, butts in the seats, then, I'm all for it, man. I'm going to tune in. I'm going to watch. You know, I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna see things, and I'm gonna enjoy them. I'm just gonna enjoy the ride, man, because that's what it's been about in boxing for me. Is about enjoying the ride. And everything that I've done, I gotta say I enjoy the ride. I competed in amateur boxing, New York City Golden Gloves, the Metro tournaments, and I just enjoy the ride, man. And it's something that I could, sit back and reminisce about and talk about. And it's some good things that I put together in my life that is like, I could always cherish it for myself within my heart, but I could always share it with other people, right? And so that's what I plan to do right here on this show is share the stories of accomplishments. I'm going to share the stories of my downfalls, like my losses as well as my wins, right? uh but they were all learning and happy experiences for me. So it's going to be great for me to even start to even share and chip away at that which is on fire Aguaya. It's interesting, We're going to get into how, boxing was involved and I was doing that and then I was coaching and then I went to other things and then I was doing the gym thing. It's interesting, it's great. And yeah. So we streaming tonight. If you're tuning in, welcome. Hit that like button. If not, and you're rewatching on the rebroadcast, we appreciate you doing that. Also, hit that like button, throw in a comment, you know what I'm saying? Any constructive criticism, we here for it. You know what I'm saying? Netflix is in the boxing business. Netflix has discussed live streaming a boxing match featuring Jake Paul. Speaking of Jake Paul, man, think about that. Big things. And Netflix did a documentary on Jake Paul and the untold stories. They did a documentary on Conor McGregor. They did a documentary on the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. So that in itself tells you that they're interested in those categories, right? Those genres of video and movies and documentaries. So why not then transition and live stream a boxing match featuring Jake Paul? And this all according to the Wall Street Journal. And then thereafter, I mean, what can happen? PBC is looking for a home for their fighters, right? Even though it's reported that Oscar De La Hoya wants to sign any PBC fighter that is not on the contract. I don't know how that's going to work. But think about it. Everybody, well, has Netflix, right? Mostly people have Netflix before they have the Zone, and people have access to Netflix uh more than they have access to ESPN or ESPN Plus. So I think a move to Netflix on a streaming service for boxing is a major move. Major move for boxing. It's a major move for Jake Paul. If PBC could get over and do fights on Netflix as well, I mean, I think the subscription will go up. I know that they block the password sharing features, but if boxing goes to Netflix, I think definitely the subscription rate will go up, up, and up. And what else is in boxing? Ngannou and Tyson. What a fight, huh? What a fight. I mean, I enjoyed that fight. I didn't think Ngannou was going to do as well as he did, but I always give people a chance. And I still don't think that he did enough to win the fight, but he won the people. And again, I said that in my last video, and that's what was important, you know. And we're looking forward to some big fights. Thanksgiving is around the corner, so we're gonna get one or two more fights in November, and we might get one or two low-key fights in December. And then thereafter, besides the Ngannou, of course, we gotta wait on more reports to see what's the situation with that and who he's gonna fight. But for the most part, around the Christmas time and New Year's time, it is a lull in the fights, and we have to then rewatch and do other things while we're at it. Tell us about that. The Ultimate Podcast. I want you guys to tune in. We're gonna be streaming weekly here. We're gonna be talking boxing, and it's gonna be great. So if you ain't doing nothing, come hang out. Let's talk about it. Joe Cardina again defends his title against Edward Vasquez. Controversial or not? Do you think Edward Vasquez did enough to win the fight or not? Let me know in the comments what you think. It was exciting. I thought it was a good fight, and it was tough. It was a tough fight for both of them. They both knew where they had to work. Vasquez was trying to get on the inside, and Cardina was trying to use his range. But there was some times when Vasquez used his range good and Cardina worked on the inside. So it was odd for both of them because they both fought a different fight and then they kind of adjusted and did their thing that way. Yeah, yep. So boxing, man, boxing. A friend sent me a text the other day, and he asked if boxing was a dying sport, and he believes so, but I don't believe so. I mean, we've been hearing the boxing is a dying sport for so long now, right? And each fight and each year it revives it. There are fights that revive it and bring back the talk and the energy, and then there's those fights that people say are not good, and so then like embarrassed boxing. So Tyson embarrassed boxing, so now boxing the dying sport. I don't think so. I think people are still going to boxing. People are still competing in boxing. People are still going to watch boxing, and I think it's not a dying sport. I think there's other combat sports that people also love to watch, and sometimes they make comparison depending on any number of things. But I think boxing is going to do well. I think we'll always have boxing, and now with Showtime out of the boxing business, people are even questioning even more if boxing a dying sport. I don't think so. I mean, we're moving into a generation where everything is app, everything is automatic, everything is on your phone. So it's only right that you start watching these sporting events on the Zone, on ESPN, and all these apps, because Showtime is looking to advance in their subscriber base, so they want to do more scripted content. And that's understandable, because for most of the time when we go to boxing, it's pay-per-view, right? So Showtime pay-per-view. So I don't have to have a Showtime account in order to do a pay-per-view. So I'm not going to subscribe uh just for that. And so that's why they're moving out of the boxing business, and we'll see where they go from here. But I think we have a lot of choices, right? We got the Zone, we got ESPN. We still have to see if HBO Max steps back into the game. There was talk about Amazon Prime also being a person of interest in order to broadcast fights. And now we're hearing that Netflix is a runner up, Paramount, just about anybody or any one of the streaming services can say, yes, we'll stream some fights. Yes, we'll do 6 fights for the year. And, we promise to do our part if you do your part. But, we'll see. What's going on, guys? I'm on fire, Aguaya. If you're tuning in on the rebroadcast, we appreciate you. If you're tuning in and you're enjoying it, leave a message. We would appreciate that. We're here. We're going to be talking about a lot of things and how I got into boxing and how I was able to secure some of the things that I was able to do and cover some of the fights. And we'll be talking about all that in future episodes. We hope to bring more people on. We hope to talk more about fights and events that's been happening. So again, we appreciate you even tuning in and watching. We hope you're enjoying all the fights that's been going on Tuesday. The Zone is broadcasting a fight from New York City, the Edison Theater on 47th between 7th and 8th. Jamel Herring is headlining, former world champion. That should be an interesting night. There's also some amateur fights happening on that night, right before the professional fights go on live. So it should be an interesting night. Some New York talent, New York amateur talent out of Brooklyn and Manhattan will be competing. So again, it should be an interesting night. Tell us about that. Should be in the building. If you see us, come by and say what's up, say hi. Let's talk boxing. All right. So, guys, it's Saturday night. We appreciate you tuning in. We hope you enjoy the little rants and reviews that are coming your way. Tell us about that. We're dropping the next episode next week. The podcast is happening. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for your time, and join us next time.